solid mineral development. Thank you.
Thank you, the SGF, honorable ministers, distinguished participants on this press conference, and members of the media. Good afternoon. Let me join the SGF and previous speakers, but from the perspective of planning and budget. What do we do, particularly as it relates to our governance? We, the Ministry of Planning, is responsible for the national consensus, which is documented typically in our national long-term perspective plans, development plans, and our renewed hope agenda. This government, led by President Asiwaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu, we have a strategy. We campaigned on it. That strategy is the renewed hope agenda. The summary of it is that it is designed to confront our reality. It's a strategy to restore an economy that works for all while supporting those who are vulnerable. It is based on appreciation of the fact that we are not where we want to be. And maybe there's no debate about that. Just yesterday, Bismarck Rewani presented a 50-year data from 1960 to 60-year data to show that since our independence, our rate of growth has been lower than our aspirations. And this could be for a lot of reasons, and we are not going to go into them. But President Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu believes that sentiment will not solve this problem, blame game will not solve this problem, but as other countries have done, innovation and imagination and proper appreciation that decades of underinvestment brought us to where we are can catalyze us and galvanize us and enable us to form a consensus that can help us solve the problem. That was why when he was swearing us as ministers, he warned that we should imagine that we are drawing water from a dry well, so that when we go to our ministries, we should be imaginative and find solutions for Nigerians. Those solutions involve choices that are both pleasant and tough, but needed to be taken. And responsible leadership sometimes necessitate a leader to take tough choices. As most of you will imagine, there's nothing that a politician loves than to be clapped for or applauded. But a responsible leader, while desiring that, will say, well, we have to take the tough choices for the future. And President Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu has led us in that. So that is why in delivering on those renewed hope agenda priorities, including the restoration of macroeconomic reform, we are instructed that we should ensure a plan-based governance and budgeting to equitably include all within our constitutional federalism. He's not only concerned for the federal government, but he's equally concerned for the subnationals generating more revenue on a sustainable basis. We re-engineered governance consistent with our federalism, created MDAs that we believe will bring attention to those sectors and we can make haste quickly. among them being steel, creative economy, blue and maritime economy, the livestock sector, as well as instructing us as part of the budget process to ensure equitable spread of projects to support the strategy which can quickly restore macroeconomic growth and development. It is in so doing that he also supported the restoration of autonomy to local government. Noteworthy is his decision recently to sign into law 2 development commissions, north to west, south, is consistent with the demand of those constituencies and our belief that any move to draw attention in what can be done better to foster development is welcome. Not surprisingly, our budget reflects our priorities and innovation. We have increased funding for security, as you have heard from the previous speakers, and I'm not going to go into the detail. We have increased funding for infrastructure, for human capital development, education, health, social transfers to support the vulnerable, as well as innovation and industrialization. We have brought initiatives that we believe are transformative, that can help us generate higher level of growth based on choices that we have seen other countries made. A country where you have to buy a house with 100% financing is not doing what others have done in the world. A country where you have to buy a fridge or a car 100% with funding 100% is not consistent with what we have seen elsewhere. Not surprisingly, a consumer credit fund was introduced to support both the manufacturing sector and to support society in enabling them to acquire goods and services on the long. Equally, a National Agricultural Development Fund was created to ensure that we continue to fund those elements of our agricultural production in such a way that we de-risk, such that private sector money will find it more profitable to invest in agriculture. We have heard about student loan scheme, youth investment fund, nano and consumer credit, MSME support, the renewed hope infrastructure fund, the first NYSC graduate support scheme. I just want to take a minute. What this means is that our children who today have not yet found job after NYSC can register and receive support from the federal government until they are able to find employment. I think that is revolutionary. Equally, Mr. President have directed a ward empowerment and social investment scheme that covers the 8,809 wards of Nigeria, meaning each ward can articulate what they can do better. And Mr. President have challenged governors and other subnationals in turn that he wants to see their plans where he can support them in generating more activity in the wards. Equally, we have engaged investors, both domestic and international. And Mr. President have led this drive himself. We have those of us who are privileged to accompany him have seen how the world is recognizing his effort and rewarding him accordingly. Nigeria now has a lot of countries that are willing to work with us to support our macroeconomic reforms and our dreams. So that's why the 4 budgets that we have done in this administration, and I'll take a minute to talk about them, reflect that prioritization, that we are not as rich as we are, We don't have the revenue. We have to be creative. We have to do what other countries have done and ensure that we mobilize investor confidence by our reforms and financing. But just before talking about the budgets, those of us who work with Mr. President Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu knows that every day here is a president who believes that governance is not a monologue, but dialogue. He has always appreciated that we live in an ever-changing world where even the most well-designed strategy like ours, the Renewed Hope Agenda, needs to be effectively communicated. And occasionally we might learn from the experience of others so that we calibrate and do better and respond to a changing world. This requires engaging and listening to others, most especially our younger ones. Mr. President believes in them, believes in listening to them, and is increasingly giving them a place of pride in the Renewed Hope Agenda administration. Mr. President had brought a lot of young persons in government, some of them disruptors, and he encouraged them and he supports them fully. And though some people may think much has not been done, but today, from what has been described from the National Youth Investment Fund, to the graduate NYSC graduate support scheme, what it means is that a young person needs not to be frustrated. He has one government scheme or the other, the technology training, where he or she, while willing to put in his or her effort, will be rewarded. I think that is an equitable society that we want to ensure that we have created for our young one. Mr. President believes that Nigeria can double its size and our younger ones should be at the center of that strategy. But we need to remind our younger ones, we are all doing these reforms, we are implementing this strategy in a world where we are not alone. We are competing with other countries. Some do not wish us well. Some have in the past colonized us. Imperialism, slavery, we need not to be repeating. Economic warfare is being put on countries, including ours. Just recently, Nigeria witnessed a technology giant, Binance, participating in economic warfare against our nation. So as our young persons express themselves, we expect them to be cognizant and mindful such that faceless technology protected persons or agendas are not utilized to undermine our country that we want, that we are working hard to ensure that we reposition so that we serve them better. Our budget process includes engagement both through the National Assembly and directly with the Budget Office and Ministry of Budget. So where youth groups, civil society organization, religious groups, those who have been engaging and those who need to engage so that they help interrogate and provide guidance or input such that we can serve them better, we have the mandate to do so, and is consistent with what Mr. President have directed us to do. Just last but not the least is to acknowledge that Mr. President have, in the last 1 year and 2 months, negotiated 4 budgets. We inherited an 819 billion naira supplementary budget, which was already passed before he was sworn in, but yet Mr. President renegotiated it with the National Assembly to provide 500 billion naira for intervention in agriculture, energy transition, MSME and nano credit support. Equally, we did a 2.17 trillion naira 20 23 second supplementary budget that focused on security, more money for security, infrastructure, agriculture, wage award to public servants, and provision for cash transfer to the vulnerable, as well as the 2024 budget, 28.77 trillion, that was, among others, designed to reduce deficit to support broader macroeconomic reforms, increase capital expenditure, as well as increase spending in the priority areas and funding for innovative schemes. Last but not the least, as we speak, a 6.2 trillion naira 2024 Budget Amendment Act is making its way through the National Assembly to provide for counterpart funding and equity contribution for the renewed hope infrastructure projects, as well as new minimum wage and additional funding. The funding for the renewed hope infrastructure counterpart and equity is very, very innovative. This goes to the heart of, we don't have the money to fund our infrastructure priorities. Therefore, what do? We are doing what other countries have done to recognize that, A, we don't have that, and create, with National Assembly support, a mechanism where we can provide equity and counterpart so that other investors will invest in those projects. We believe this is the way to go, and we will see more of that. We believe this can only be done with consensus and with ownership by Nigerians, especially our youth. And that is why I took more time to lay out that this is our vision. Occasionally it may be challenged, but in the medium and short term, it will pay off, as indeed it has been paying off. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister of Budget.